Let's be real. When was the last time you put off going to the doctor? Maybe you said, I'm too busy, or it'll heal on its own. Or my personal favorite, I don't even know which doctor to go to. We've all been there. Booking a doctor's appointment can feel really daunting. But there's not really an excuse anymore, thanks to ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. Most bookings happen within 24 to 72 hours, and you can even sometimes get same-day visits. I know that if I ever needed this, it's exactly what I'd use. Stop putting off those doctor appointments and head to ZocDoc.com/Sportly to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Sportly. ZocDoc.com/Sportly.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength, Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
It's May 4th, 2024. We're in Louisville for the most exciting 2 minutes in sports.
They're off.
The Kentucky Derby.
In the Kentucky Derby.
The Derby is one of 3 famous horse races in America known collectively as the Triple Crown. The other 2 are the Belmont Stakes and the Preakness Stakes. 20 horses race the 1.25 mile long track in front of a live audience of about 150,000 people. Or 20 million if you count those watching at home. But this year it's special. It's the 150th anniversary of the Derby, and a horse named Fierceness is the favorite.
Fierceness is third just outside of them. Then Stronghold Mystic Dan to the inside.
It's far from over, but with just under a half mile left, Fierceness takes the lead.
It is Fierceness who's moving up on the outside of Track Phantom, and there on the far out.
As we enter the final stretch, here comes Mystic Dan on the inside.
On the inside, it is Mystic Dan down toward the inside with the lead in the final 16. Forever Young, Sierra Leone is coming. These 3 coming down to the wire. Who's it going to be?
Well, so wait a minute. Who won?
Freedom, finish fourth, a photo finish to decide the.
That's right. We've got ourselves the first photo finish in the Kentucky Derby in over 25 years.
It looks like Mystic Dan
on the inside.
By a flared nostril.
In the slow-mo playback, it looks like Mystic Dan held off the 2 horses who threatened his lead in the final seconds. And finally, the officials make the call. Mystic Dan has won the 150th Kentucky Derby in one of the closest finishes in race history. Hey everyone, it's Kavitha Davidson and welcome back to Sportly. Today, we're taking a look at horse racing in the U.S., from the Kentucky Derby at iconic Churchill Downs to the lesser-known races at smaller tracks struggling to fill their bleachers. The most recent Derby was actually just held last Saturday, and this episode is being recorded before the race, but if it's anything like last year, it will continue to deliver on the excitement factor.
The first Saturday in May always signals the start of racing season. We're getting set for the 151st running of the Kentucky Derby with some big news.
And after over 150 years, the people are still tuned in, with over $300 million bet on the 2024 Derby. And this year, it'll probably be even more. But the truth is, the success of the Derby is not representative of what's going on at racetracks across the U.S. horse racing just isn't one of the most popular spectator sports in America. It's not football, basketball, or even baseball or soccer. And over the last few decades, racetracks across the country have gotten more and more empty. So how did the Kentucky Derby become such a singular event in U.S. horse racing? And why are other races struggling to keep up? And as ethical concerns pile up, what exactly does the future hold for horse racing? Let's take it back to when it all started. Who had the crazy idea to start racing horses in the first place? Well, believe it or not, humans have been racing horses for literally millennia. The Greeks, for instance, were racing horses in 700 BC at the ancient Olympic Games. And there's been organized racing in countries like China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia for thousands of years. But when we talk about the tradition of horse racing here in the US, it really begins across the pond in the UK. You see, horse racing entered its modern era right around the time of colonial America. It was in the late 1700s when the British created their own iconic sequence of races, the St. Leger, the Oaks, and the Derby. So naturally, they brought their horses with them to the States. And as America gained its independence, Americans developed a unique culture around horse racing. The sport became especially popular after the Civil War. In the 10 years that followed, each of the Triple Crown races would be held for the first time. And that's how we end up with the famous Kentucky Derby, established in 1875 thanks to a name that might sound familiar.
More than 150 years ago, a guy with a pretty famous last name fell in love with horse racing abroad in France. Remember Lewis and Clark, the guys who explored the western half of North America?
Meriwether Lewis Clark was William Clark's grandson. He founded the Kentucky Jockey Club and raised funds to create a racetrack.
So with Clark's efforts, Churchill Downs was born, the racetrack that has hosted the Derby every year since 1875. From the very beginning, the Derby's backers wanted it to be big, but it wasn't always smooth sailing. Just a few decades after the track opened, attendance dropped pretty significantly. That is, until Colonel Matt Wynn came into the picture. He was a merchant tailor and horse racing enthusiast who started managing the track in 1914.
He wanted the Derby to be important, so he would court the East Coast media and try to get them to write about it. You know, it's the epicenter of racing at the time, so he's really looking at the folks in the East Coast, breeders and trainers and owners as well, having your horses come to the Derby and be part of the Derby.
Just a year into Wynn's leadership, the track turned its first profit. But his work was just getting started. For the 41st running of the race, Wynn convinced multimillionaire and horse breeder Harry Payne Whitney to bring his highly rated horse, Regret, to compete.
When she was born in the spring of 1912 at New Jersey's Brookdale Farm, owner-breeder Harry Payne Whitney named his regally bred offspring of his star stallion, Broomstick, Regret, because she was a filly rather than the colt he had hoped for.
Regret was a filly, or a young female horse, and she went on to win the Derby, attracting national media attention as the first female champion. Under Matt Wynn's leadership, the Kentucky Derby went from just another horse race to the sport's crown jewel. But how has it managed to keep its appeal all these years later? Well, the Derby's success isn't just about Matt Wynn. It's the image of opulence and grandeur that Churchill Downs has been cultivating for over a century. But don't just take our word for it. Let's see what it's really like to attend the Kentucky Derby. Pretend you opened your wallet for the ticket to get into this year's Derby. Now, the cheapest ticket is around $100 for general admission, but the average ticket is around $1,200. Well, what's next? First things first, you're gonna need an outfit. You know, the horse race isn't the only spectacle at the Kentucky Derby. Attendees have been sporting some seriously eccentric fashion for over 100 years. And this year will be no different. The Kentucky Derby even releases their own style guide, complete with a devoted fashion show. Here's Wave News in Louisville.
Well, when it comes to the Kentucky Derby, most people think of horses first, but it's an event that is also big on fashion. Today, the 2025 Derby Style Guide was released. Oh my, look at that.
So you take a look at the style guide, find something nice to wear, and of course, you'll need a hat. You see, hats are really the centerpiece of the iconic Kentucky Derby style. There are plenty of haberdashers and shops around Louisville working day in and day out to get you ready. Here's Jenny Fannensteel from Forma Millinery, a high-end hat boutique in Louisville.
It's almost like planning a wedding. People plan months in advance to go to the Derby. They're matching the outfit, the purse, the jewelry, everything coordinates with the hat.
This might sound like a lot of effort for a 2-minute horse race. But the truth is, the pageantry of the Kentucky Derby is really its beating heart. It's what has kept the race kicking for all these years more than anything else. And it's more than just the fashion. It's true, those eye-catching, elaborate outfits are a huge part of the Derby, but as the old adage goes, the people make the place. You see, Churchill Downs isn't just a hangout spot for rich Kentuckians. Take a look around and you'll see some familiar faces, because the Derby attracts the rich and wealthy and famous from around the world. Here's a short clip from Forbes.
Just a small sampling of stars in attendance over the years include Angela Bassett, Mira Sorvino, Jennifer Nettles, Layla Ali, and even Queen Elizabeth II.
These high-profile attendees only add to the feeling of glamour surrounding the event. And put simply, Churchill Downs creates a spectacle every first Saturday of May in Louisville. And let's not forget about the race itself, coined the most exciting 2 minutes in sports for moments like what we heard at the start of the episode. It's no wonder that it's been able to hold our attention for all these years. It's a truly special day in the world of horse racing. But on the flip side, all of that money and opulence isn't quite translating to the other tens of thousands of horse races run each year. The reality on the ground at most tracks is nothing like Churchill Downs, including at the oldest track in the country, Freehold Raceway in New Jersey. Freehold closed just last year. Here's New Jersey Spotlight News.
On Saturday, after 170 years, New Jersey's oldest racetrack will shut down for good. The site is just one of nearly 50 other racetracks around the country that have closed in the last few decades as interest in the sport declines and the popularity of other sports betting takes hold.
Its patrons were understandably devastated. Here's a woman named Barbara.
My family has been involved in this business since my great-grandfather, just kind of shell-shocked.
And here's John.
My mother started working here when I was 9 months old. I was a child running through people's legs, watching races. I've owned horses. It's a passion of mine, and it hurts.
The owner's response? Well, given the environment for horse racing in America right now, it simply wasn't financially feasible to keep the racetrack open. At Freehold, the amount of money bet on races, called handles, declined from $5 million in 2018 to $2.8 million in 2023. And they're not the only ones hurting. Even as sports betting explodes, which we covered in an episode in March, wagering on horse races actually declined nationwide in 2024 for the third year in a row. You see, horse racing used to have a monopoly on sports gambling in the United States, but with the legalization of sports betting by a 2018 Supreme Court ruling, Americans now have other options. Why bet on horses when you could bet on the Super Bowl, the World Series, or the NBA Finals? Here's Stephen Edelson, sports columnist with the Asbury Park Press.
There's so much competition for the betting dollar these days that racetrack handle, wagering at racetracks has gone really down precipitously over the last 2 decades. And I think Freehold is just kind of the latest domino to fall, unfortunately.
Arlington Park in Illinois, Golden Gate Fields in California, Pompano Park in Florida. racetracks are being forced to shut their gates across the United States. And for those that are still open, attendance is down 30% over the last 25 years. And the struggling finances of the industry are just part of the picture. Even more importantly, there's the well-being of the horses themselves. Horses pumped full of untested drugs, pushed to their physical limits, discarded once they can't race anymore. If you ask some people, it's time to let this industry die for good.
Before, it seemed like to me that the people wanted to breed their horses that would last longer. Now they want the best horse for a short time.
That was retired jockey Randall Meyer speaking to the New York Times for a mini documentary on the perils of horse racing. The accompanying investigations by the Times started real conversations more than 10 years ago about the harm being done to thoroughbred horses. In the years that followed, Congress created a watchdog to get the industry to clean up its act. But the situation doesn't seem to be getting much better. Hundreds of horses continue to die every year after being drugged up and pushed to the limits by the demands of the industry. Here's Stuart Janney, chair of the Jockey Club, in an interview with 60 Minutes just 2 years ago.
In a word, could you describe what horse racing regulation has been like in the last 50 years?
A failure, and increasingly so.
It's gotten worse.
It's gotten worse.
And just a few weeks back, Churchill Downs made headlines after a horse was injured on the track and later euthanized. The reality is, at these lesser-known and less regulated racetracks, death is the norm. And it's really no accident. You see, the harms being done to horses aren't just par for the course. They're the result of an incentive to milk as much money out of every horse as possible. Here's Dr. Tom David, former equine medical director with the Louisiana Racing Commission.
Strictly self-centered greed of not thinking about the horse, but thinking about maybe I can get one more race out of him and get a piece of the purse.
And even as the regulations keep piling on, if history is any indicator, it'll be really, really difficult to root out that greed, especially as the sport's finances get increasingly dire. So, what do we do next? Well, one option is protect the horses and let the sport die. There once was a time when horse racing's devout defenders could point to the millions of fans showing up at racetracks every day, but those fans aren't showing up anymore. What's left is despair in America's hundreds of tracks, desperate owners, and sick, injured horses. But that's not to say that the end of horse racing would be easy. This is one of the oldest sports in American history with huge cultural ties in the American South. There are literally centuries of tradition. Millions of fans, for many of whom horse racing runs in the family. Some continue to hold out hope that the new regulators will be able to clean up the sport once and for all, maybe even attracting some new audiences in the process. But regardless of where you land, when you're watching those illustrious Triple Crown events, just keep in mind what's going on at all those races you aren't watching. Thanks for tuning into Sportly. Tune in next week and every week after for a new episode. And if you've got thoughts or suggestions for a topic you'd like me to cover, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to email me at kavitha@immigrantlypod.com. And if typing a long email isn't your thing, you can record and attach a voice memo to your email. I might read or play it in one of the upcoming episodes. Sportly is an Immigrantly media production. This episode was produced by Sadia Khan, written by Nicholas Black and me, Kavitha Davidson. Research and fact-checking by Suhasini Patni. Our sound designer and editor is Paroma Chakravarti. Our theme music was created by Simon Hutchinson. Other music by Epidemic Sound. Tune back in next week for more Sportly.